Everyone, welcome back to Transfers Explained. It's episode 3. I can't believe we're 3 episodes in. And this is going to be much more along the lines of the Sesko pod, the first pod we did, where we spent 30 minutes talking about a particular player. I think now with the Real Madrid stuff, I think done and dusted. They had the last minute, movement with the marca headlines and all the... I keep saying these Real Madrid journalists, they work overtime. The Real Madrid PR machine... in the build-up to our second leg with them and everything surrounding Zubimendi as well. And I'm sure if we want Rodriguez to give you the same, listen, there's going to be quite a lot to deal with in terms of the Real Madrid press. But hey-ho, there we go. But I think with that having come and gone now, we can safely say, though we haven't seen Zubimendi holding the shirt, he's an Arsenal player. He's going to be an Arsenal player for the 25-26 season. Wow, they're flying by. So I thought we'd do a little bit of a breakdown. And back here with Ben. Of course, last week we did more of an hour looking at wingers in general, Ben. But what do you prefer? Do you prefer the wider conversation or do you prefer the more in-depth about certain players?
I guess probably the more in-depth, just because people love to just take one thing you say and run with it. So if you go in depth, like, you can't complain there because, like, I've told you everything I feel about someone, then you can make what you think of that. Whereas if I just say, oh, yeah, this person, they're good at this, and then someone will be like, what? You're saying that they're this or whatever? I'm like, oh, gosh. Which happens a lot, especially when you just make, like, one post about something or online. So probably more in-depth. But I do like the more, like, obscure links. Like trying to make sense of stuff, like some of the links at times as well. But
well, one at the moment is that Brazilian centre back, right, at Lille.
Someone I've liked him for a while, to be honest. Just because he's like so two-footed, but he's like really good in the air as well. So it seems like I know people are like we don't need defenders, but I actually think if you get a left back and you get a right centre back, then you're completely done in defence. And it's more because the guys that we've got in backup are like injury prone, like Tomiyasu, and everyone says we've got so many left backs, but like all of them are either injury prone or not good enough. So like you still need someone there. I
couldn't agree more. I think. And actually, I know we said this is going to be half an hour of Zubimendi, but just very quickly, I completely agree with you because that has been the interesting new link from the week. I think everything else has been more sort of updates on Sesko and Gyökeres and all that. And this is a transfers podcast, so of course, only right we touch on it briefly. But with these defenders, I saw your thread and I encourage everyone, I always link your X account in the description because everyone, you've got to go follow Ben if you're not already. If you're not, what are you doing? Because you had a really interesting post about two-footed defenders, the demand for them right now. You talked about Dean House and you mentioned this new defender we're linked to. I wonder where Mark Gehi ranks in that because he's not necessarily two-footed maybe, but he's used to playing on the left side of a back three, which obviously gives him a lot of sort of comfort in that area of the pitch with a year left on his contract. And I'm with you. We look at our options in defence, we go, well, they're stacked. But then you also go, Calafiori, Zinchenko, Tomiyasu, Ben White, Jurriën Timber, now Gabriel with the hamstring, have all had significant injury concerns of some kind in the last year or two. And it's quite simply an area of the pitch that is too vital to Mikel Arteta to go unaddressed completely. So I think we will add a defender. I think there might be like a £20 million option out there that they do, but I think we will add them. I agree with you.
Yeah, like I said, there are two places I would want us to address, but I wouldn't go crazy with them. Like in terms of price, it's got to be like 70% plus of the budget goes in attack, and Zubimendi as well. But
of course,
nice little change there. Zubimendi as well.
Back to Zubimendi. Actually, do you know what did pop into my mind? Sverre Nypan obviously signed for Man City. Frustrating. We did a show on him back in January. We looked like we were going to sign him. Obviously, Arsenal threw that away. I think whether he was ready to contribute now or not, I think we actually needed that type of player in our squad. So it's actually a bit of a shame we haven't picked him up, even if it is for in a year or two's time. I know we've got a lot of players, Muniri, Dalman, but that's one that's got away.
Yeah, they've got that pathway. Like we do have the pathway, and I do think we would develop a player who's rated that highly. But you've got to think from a player's point of view and the parents as well. Like the risk is way lower joining Man City because you see, even if it doesn't work there, you've got Rodgers, Palmer. They go work somewhere else. Whereas with ours, if they don't work, they become a Sammy Lokonga or some random guy that gets released and then goes and plays in League One. So
it's a great point.
We've really got
a great way of looking at it.
We really got to make sure, especially with the youth recruitment being a bigger thing now. He's not that. He would be first team recruitment, but you've got to think of like the loan pathway's got to be better. The development plan of every player has got to be better. And I know they'll be working on that. It just takes time to really change that around. But
that's a really good way of looking at it. I hadn't thought of it like that, and you're spot on. Yeah, Lokonga, who I maintain I don't think was bad for us. He maybe wasn't at the level, but I think there was clearly a talented player in there. Wasn't worth a risk for sort of. And he went to some decent clubs. Don't get me wrong, and obviously played a season in the Premier League with Luton where he actually did well. But yeah, players that aren't getting the opportunities at Man City go with a very different reputation. So that's a very good point.
Yeah.
All right, well, we've caught up on all the other stuff, so let's talk Zubimendi now. Do you know, Ben, I tell you what's really annoying about this transfer? Because it happened in January, we needed a forward. Basically, that's when we kind of found out about it. And in the run-up, we've had obviously a bad end to the season, and everyone's talking about Sesko, Gyökeres and all that. I think it's gone under the radar what an unbelievably talented footballer we've signed here. And it's kind of just, I think maybe because there's a release clause, maybe because he's been sought after for a few years, maybe because we've been so covered in DM for a long time that we haven't needed anyone. I think people are just a bit like, oh, okay, we've got Zubimendi, that's nice. No. We've signed a fucking brilliant footballer. Really brilliant footballer. And I want to spend, 23 minutes of this pod now just really explaining why that's the case with your expertise and with my surface level analysis. But let's give it a go. Do you agree with what I've said there, by the way, in terms of the talent of player we're bringing in?
Yeah, 100%. He's like, there's a few players that I think are in that same category, and the two at PSG that everyone's raving about, Neves and Vitinha, they've got similar. They're not the exact profiles, but they've got overlapping traits. And then Vitinha, I'm not saying Zubimendi's this, but Vitinha, I've always said, is a bit like a modern Xavi, a little bit, in the way how he can dictate the pace of the game. And then also both, one of the reasons Madrid have been linked was because they were looking for a replacement for Modric. So as a slightly higher up midfielder, both Vitinha and Zubimendi were linked. And you can see why, because they've got overlapping traits there. They're not the exact same profiles, but they solve a lot of problems. And the fact that we're getting someone that absolutely everyone wanted, it's funny because loads of people are like, oh, I don't really, like, I watch him and I'm not wowed, but I'm like, maybe that's just you then, because like every club in the world like wanted this guy, and the fact that we've got him says a lot. And we got other clubs to wait. We got him to wait for us almost, you know.
Yeah, totally agree. Now you just touched on something. I had a list of questions, and this is I think my fifth, but I can't not ask you after you've said that. Can this guy play as an 8 then? Now the reason I ask is because sometimes I think we get so caught up in the positions they have played that we think there's kind of nothing else really to them. But when I watch him, I think this is someone who he's got a little burst to get away, just a little one, just a carry in him. He's got a real range of passing. There's a creative bone in him. And is there a world in which, you know, actually a bit like Jorginho did? I always reference Jorginho playing in the 8 against Liverpool when we beat them 3-1 at home, so Rice could sit at the base. Is there a world, and again, I did a video on the Goonerverse about this maybe 2-3 weeks ago, where it's not Zubimendi or Partey, it's Zubimendi and Partey, because actually you can have a Partey or Rice at the base with Ødegaard and Zubimendi in the pockets a little bit. I'm sort of jumping ahead massively in terms of trying to understand this player, but because you've touched on it there, do you think he's got that quality to be used in slightly more advanced areas for us as an all-round midfielder?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the things that I like about, again, just brief reference in the PSG team, when you watch certain teams like that, it helps you see the game, because they play in such a fluid way, and it helps you see the game in a different way. And I think sometimes we can be too like pin a player down on one position, and Arteta has shown so many times that like the player, it's more about the role, and they might have certain traits where they would suit playing higher up in some games, or they would suit playing lower in others. And I think definitely he could play as an 8. His whole his like football and education, if you like, he's been more of a 6, but at the same time, in the current team he plays in, he is a little bit more of a centre midfielder rather than, it's at times anyways. He's played as slightly higher, a bit more box to box, and he's, even when he does do that, when he gets higher up, he still tends to be the deepest midfielder. But when he does get into the box or gets shots off, he's shown he's got good ball striking. He's obviously got really good control in tight spaces. And he's just someone who's got really good awareness, so he can make decisions quickly. And if you're in tight spaces, that can help as well. But I just think that it's definitely something that we'll see happen in terms of, you know, resting someone like Rice as well. It's important that the third midfielder, whether it's Partey or whether we're getting someone else, I think Partey will probably stay. You play them two together, and then you can completely rest another important player, which is something we wouldn't have as much of. So it's important to have that solution, really.
Yeah, I agree. I think the ability for Zubimendi to cover in the 8 in some way, whether that's he double pivots and Lewis Skelly inverts beyond him, or we have the left forward tuck in so that the left back can bomb on a little bit. However we make that work, I think it's important that Rice isn't basically depended on. Now, look, we've got some great cover there from Zubimendi, Partey, Rice, Marino. We're very well placed, and that's before Ødegaard, Waneri, Dowman, who knows, and whoever else might come in. I'm not sure, but you know, in that 6-8 area, we're really well covered. But it'd be really interesting if Zubimendi can add a different dynamic from like a. I know Xavi and Iniesta are the two best central midfielders I've ever seen play the game. Pure central midfielders. But if you've got some with that profile of, I'm not a 10, but I'm creative. I've got a bit of flair. I've got more than a bit of flair they had. But you know, I've got a pass in me. I can play short, medium, long. I can thread a through ball. I can impact and control the game in the final third, not just having to do with the whole game in front of me. I think if Zubimendi can bring us a little bit of that would be really, really interesting. Do you find he's a creative player? I mean, that's something this team needs. We always talk about adding it from a 10's perspective. Can he add creativity to this team, whether it be in the 8 or the 6?
Definitely. I think when you look at someone like him, I think he's a general, like, who will find solutions is probably one of the best ways of putting it, where whether he's deeper and he's an early part of build up, or he's higher up in the pockets, he seems to he's really good at scanning before he receives the ball, and it's a really small, it seems like a really small detail. When you talk about someone having awareness, that's how you have awareness. Can you see the whole picture, and then how quickly do you process the information? If you're not scanning, you're not going to get the information in the first place, which is part when a lot of people complain about Rice receiving the ball in the half turn and stuff like that. Just watch when he scans. Sometimes you see he doesn't scan enough. And then so when he does receive the ball, he's not completely aware of where to go. And then because he's not as good at turning as quick as well, that's how he can get into certain issues. Just going off slightly, I think partly why we've played him higher might be to help him learn that as well, because you do it in a less high pressure area. So maybe that plan is to move him back deeper. But I also think he's very useful higher up as well. So
interesting.
But with the Zubimendi, I definitely think on the ball, higher up as well, you can see him find the players in between the lines a lot of the time. And the thing that's I guess is a type of creativity is that there's more variance to his game. When you look at a Partey, it's quite one dimensional a lot of the time. He wants to go through the lines constantly, and sometimes knowing the right time to do so can create a bit more unpredictability, which kind of makes you more creative in a way, because he knows how to move out. There's little movements that certain players do that you can just tell them are intelligent. For example, if you're running off the ball and there's a counter attack or whatever, and you've got a marker right next to you, there's something that a lot of these type of midfielders do, where they just slowly start to stop running to the point where they stop, and their marker carries on running. Then they get a couple yards of space, receive the ball. They've got enough time to turn and switch it. He's the type of midfielder that would do that all the time. So that helps in build up, but also creating in the final third, giving you that extra bit of space.
Cool. I like that on the movement, that analysis of his movement there, because one of the things, I wasn't able to watch the Nations League games where, from what I heard, he balled out against Portugal and France, I think it was. But I watched the comps of both games. Obviously, people trying to highlight the best things he did. He did something that I really feel we lack in this team. Now, to be fair, I want to give Partey credit. I think Partey does try to do this. I think Partey is quite a fluid mover on the ball. But one thing I saw from Zubimendi is when the pass wasn't on, he would carry the ball into the space to when this pass was. And what I find from Arsenal, there's a lot of get the ball into Rice, get the ball into Lewis Skelly, get the ball into Partey, and not criticising these players. I think part of it's structure. I think it's the teams we come up against. But there's a lot of like, oh, the pass forward isn't on, so let me put my foot on the ball, drag it back, and then play it back again. And it goes to another centre-back, it goes to another full-back, till naturally that pass opens up through sheer movement of the ball and passing combinations. But sometimes it's, well, can I just work the angle? And Zubimendi was doing things where he's not even carrying it very far. He's just carrying it that little bit to then flick outside of the foot, make a dart. He's got it back again, and then the game's opened up. It's nothing that clever. I mean, I think a lot of people might watch it and go, well, why has that even made the comp? But he seems like someone who will make the angle if it's not naturally there. And again, I want to be careful because I think Rice is a good ball carrier. Like I said, I think Partey is a really fluid mover. I think Partey is very good when he's getting pressed at reacting and turning and opening the game. I'm talking when there is no press and the defense is looking at you going, what have you got? And I think Zubimendi's kind of shown that. Am I talking complete shit or
no, bang on. Like that for me, that's the same thing. There's certain players where they carry to get all the way into the final third and to take on players. His is more, he carries to create a little bit of space to then release the ball. So it's like he'll go past one or two players, and he is very good at carrying the ball as well. He's not like Rice level, but he's still very good at it. Which is another dimension we don't really have with as much with Partey. I don't think it's that he can't do it. He did it a lot more when he was a bit younger. But I think like now he tends to sit deeper a lot more. But he's got that little burst of pace where he can just get past someone and then he'll play the pass. And it's not just about being good at controlling the tempos, it's about slowing it down, but knowing when to speed it up as well. And we've got one who can speed it up, and the one who can slow it down is Odegaard. But when you have someone who can do both, you don't need both those players. And you can have someone, you can allow Odegaard to just stay high and take risk on the ball in the final third, and then he can stay deep and create everything from there. It's definitely another weapon that we don't really have as much of.
Yeah, totally agree. Is he? And look, I know Partey's been brilliant, and I know people in the comments will say, look, like he performs so well, Zubimendi can't expect to walk in and just sort of take his place. I totally acknowledge all of that. But is Zubimendi today a better player than Thomas Partey, do you think? Or do you think he will be as the season runs on? Because before people, get upset in the comments about it, let me stress, I really see a world in which they play together. I think the beauty of Arsenal's next evolution isn't just goal scorers, isn't just match winners, isn't just depth. It's actually an unpredictability in our rotation. It's going into a game against 8th at home, a good side, and going, we've gone Odegaard, Partey, Zubimendi today because we can. It reminds me of when we beat Forest 3-0 at the Emirates in November, when he just went for Marino and Jorginho. He dropped Partey and Rice, I think, and he rested. He rested Havertz and he brought in Jesus, and Trossard started on the left, and he went for a lot of technical players on the pitch. And I love Arteta to do more of that. I think we looked really fresh and really vibrant and energetic on the day. One of our best performances actually of the season. And it was, I think, because of the rotation and the freshness in it. So I've waffled on, but all that to say, do you think as a starting six, Zubimendi's got more than Partey, or is that something that will develop over time?
I think, I think for the requirements of what we would need in a number 6, I think he does, because of his general. I think he is, because of the general awareness, but also like I said with Partey, it can be it's too much trying to go forward to the point where you might lose the ball more often. He's very secure at getting past the first challenge. But I also think one side to Partey, he's had one of his best seasons. The reason why I would say it is his best is the physical decline, like defensively. I feel like he's someone who never had the best like awareness, but he's been so good at recovering.
Yeah.
Like he'll get out of position, but he was so quick that he could then catch up. Whereas he's lost that little edge, and I feel like sometimes when he switches off, it's caused a problem quite a few times this season. So when I look
thought
at
he
that,
ended the season better on that, though. If you don't mind me cutting you,
definitely.
I thought at the start of the season with like the Neto goal, him being really deep in defence, things like that were picked out. The back post when Villa equalised, but I also felt in like the PSG game and others, I can remember he was like really on the recovery, quite good to the point where I was like, does Zubimendi even have this athleticism? I don't think he does, but I mean, again,
he still has it. I just feel like there's certain players where. The best way to describe it is when they are for your team, you never worry when there's something going on in their area. Whereas now I do off the ball a little bit on the defensive side. Like someone like Belabor is a perfect example of like his recovery pace, his physicality, his reading of the game. It's like you would never be worried if there's a player running through and he's around. Like it's the same with Rice defending transitions. We've had some where like the one against Liverpool. Do you remember that one where there was like 4 players running at Rice and somehow he gets the ball and comes away with it? But it's just because there's like the confidence there and how well he reads it and the patience as well. He knows when to just hold the space and not to come out and jump or whatever. But yeah, I think with Zubimendi, there's probably a better reading of the game defensively, definitely not as physical, but I think his finding solutions and build-up play is better than Partey right now. But they're just people like different things, so I think some people won't like him as much, and some will. So yeah, but it's this whole thing where people view a 6 as this one thing, but they're all different, you know. Rodri, Rice, whatever, they're very different players. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Jorginho. Yeah. I mean, if you look at the best 6s of the last few years, Fernandinho is different to Rodri, is different to Rice, is different to Fabinho, he's different to Jorginho. When Jorginho came, I was so worried about our high press and how he was going to fit in that. But his reading the game was exceptional. I think the only mistake he ever made was on the ball against Tottenham. I think off the ball in the Premier League, I think in the Carabao Cup against West Ham, he got exposed. But I never ever worried about Jorginho off the ball. Couldn't believe the change he had on my perspective of him as an off the ball player.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to see that with Zubimendi. Is that someone you trust off the ball, Zubi?
What I would say is he's nowhere near Rice's level. He doesn't excel defensively. He's okay in most areas. I think defending transitions at times he can be not the best, but I think part of it is the whole setup of the team. I think the way we play a lot of the time, it means that the deepest midfielder wouldn't get as exposed as often, because a lot of the time we're like pushing teams in like this. So right beside him, you've got at least one inverted fullback, maybe 2, or you've got the 3 or 2 centre backs right behind it as well. And then in front, there's 2 or 3 midfielders as well. So there's that thing where you can really suffocate teams. So that's how we defend transitions more as a collective. But him as an individual, I think it's a slight weakness as well. Like I said, he's not someone who, when we talk about is he better than Partey, I think if you look at Partey at his best defensively, he's not on that level for me. No. He's not got the legs that Partey did.
And he's 26, so he probably won't ever get there.
No, he won't. He's a more athletic Jorginho, but athletic Jorginho is not Usain Bolt. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a big gap between the two. He's a lot closer to it, but he's nowhere near that. Sure. So, yeah.
Interesting. I've just had a little look at Zubimendi's heat map. I think I might actually pull this up on the edit. Apologies if I don't. But Zubimendi's heat map on SofaScore for La Liga, there is a slight bias to the left. Very slight, and quite clearly someone who covers areas of the pitch. There's a slight bias to the left. What made me look at this was some comments I had in videos. For example, I did a Partey versus Zubimendi video here on the Goonerverse, which was purely looking at numbers. I said at the beginning of the video and at the end, don't take this as me saying one is better than the other because of the numbers. I said there's so much context, but if you're interested in it, I think they're always quite interesting to look at anyway, because we like to pull up FBref when they do look good. When they don't look as good, we should probably talk about that too. Now, some people in the comments, forgive me, again, if I can find the comments, I'll pull it up here on screen. But some people were saying he's going to really benefit the left-hand side, even from the six, because he's someone who likes to pick up the ball in that area of the pitch. What do people mean by that? I've seen a few clips and I'm like, now that I've read that comment, I'm noticing it. But what do people mean by that, Ben?
Yeah, so I think when you look at how we play, there's even a few moments for Spain especially where him and Nico Williams link up really nicely, because he'll make that pass early that we don't always make quick enough, where he'll quickly get the ball out of his feet and then play the diagonal over to the left-hand side. That's one way. Just because if you play it earlier, then the defence don't recover in time, and then it's just a 1v1, so then you can just take on that one defender and then you're through. So being able to play that earlier is important, but also in terms of his general movement as well, I don't know exactly what the setup will be, whether it's he just plays as a six and then Rice plays a left centre midfield, or it might be we move into more of a double pivot, which would be interesting.
Well, what do you expect out of interest?
I've always felt like we might move to a double pivot. And if we did, Zubimendi would be more on the left side, Rice more on the right side. And then the third midfielder, whether it's Odegaard or someone else, will move more central as a number 10. I think that's the best way for us, the direction for us to move into, because when I look at the younger guys coming through, I know people are like, yeah, they're so young, we don't need to be thinking about them. But when you've got talents like who are rated that highly, you've got to have a plan in mind of how they're going to play. And when you look at Saka, Nwaneri, Dalman, you've got three right-sided, left-footed players. So you have to think, how are they going to fit into this team? And I think they are more natural 10s that could play there, as opposed to Odegaard, who I think is a bit between a 10 and an 8. He's probably become more of an 8, really.
Yeah.
But the important thing, having both of them there, is Zubimendi will play through the lines really well, and he's really good at finding players high up in the pockets, like fizzing quick balls to them, to the side, importantly to the side where the defender isn't, so they already know naturally which way to go. So even if they're not aware of who's behind them, they can just trust his pass, if you like. And then that plays through. But definitely on the left side, he will be the one to burst through those lines, play the pass down to the left winger quicker. And I think you might sort of have some nice combinations down that left side, whoever the left back is, with him and the left midfielder as well.
I think the impact on the left is huge here. Because there's two things. Teams really try to stop our right-hand side with Timber and White, with Odegaard and Saka. So you need a left-hand side that's really functional, can hurt teams. But on the other hand, if the left-hand side is ticking and teams feel like, okay, we're stretched because we're worried about both sides, then things open up centrally, which is an area of the pitch where we struggle to access. So something has to happen on that left, whether it's adding devastating quality to take advantage of the space or getting us playing down that side more for a better balance. Now, on Zubimendi, you talked about the dynamics in the double pivot. I couldn't agree with you more. I think the way forward, when you look at the players we've got, yes, there's going to be moments where we invert Lewis Skelly. Someone like a Marino Rice is bombing on as that kind of left 8, and that will look brilliant, right? That would be great. And we've seen it. We've seen Arsenal be able to do that very successfully against Real Madrid and over many years now. But when you look at the players we're linked to, like a Rodrigo, like a Nico Williams as well, where I think Martinelli's most dangerous, where I think Trossard's most dangerous, so actually looking at the players we've got, I think this team is made for that 8 actually just tucking in and build up, because if it's Rice who's the 8, then you've got him defending transitions there a little bit more neatly, and his starting position, our rest defense, has him there. It also means that you've got 2 in build up in the pivot, which I think is a good thing for us, because I think at times we've struggled to play through the press recently. It means that Lewis Skelly can actually invert into the higher position, which I like as a more natural midfielder, get into the areas he got in when he scored against Man City. But then on the flip side, he can go on the outside like he did on his opening goal for England under Tuchel, or Calafiori can do that, which he's been doing it so brilliantly, and then that suits the profiles of the left winger. So I don't know if Arteta's going to do that, but it feels like the squad is made for, with the amount of players we've got that are good in deeper areas, the amount of left wingers that want to play on the inside, and the fact that we can still have some overlapping quality, and also just for the sake of mixing it up tactically. We've been doing the same thing. It'd be good to see a left winger drive on the inside and then an overlapper going the other way. And you just think, teams are going, my God, how do I get out to him when I've just been pulled on the inside? I'd love to see more of that from Arsenal. And it feels like Zubimendi, with his own little tweaks and things he'll add, can maybe give us that dynamic a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as a option in midfield, that one way that it would help as well is some of the players being able to create for others. So there's more natural dynamics there. So I've always felt Saka needed another overlap rather than Odegaard being underlap constantly or being in that space so Saka can't cut inside.
Yeah.
Whereas if you put the 10 more central, so if it's Odegaard or whoever, they'll drift over to the left side more and they'll have more space over there. So then that creates more of a dynamic with the left winger rather than the right winger, who Saka himself can create things. But also Rice being the overlap or underlap for Saka, because he's more direct. He'll go that way, and Saka will want to come inside. So he naturally will pull defenders there and pull them away from Saka and create the space inside. Kind of what we don't have when White isn't there, because Timber likes to be inside. So if you have Timber at right back, it then means you still have that overlap or underlap that White would provide. And then on the left side, you've then got Odegaard or Nwaneri, who I think even pre-season last year, we think he played left centre midfield. I think it was against Man United, and he got that assist, making that overlap run and cutting it back. I just feel like sometimes we think too much about your left-footed players need to be on one side and right needs to be on the other or whatever. But sometimes if you just put very intelligent players, they will find a way to make stuff happen. Doesn't matter which side they're on. You look at Rafinha playing left wing, just an example. So maybe that we'll see more of Nwaneri or someone like that on that left side more often. But yeah, it's definitely exciting signing, one that is not getting the hype it needs really, because everyone's so focused on the attackers. But it does help a massive issue that we've had, which is the central progression of the ball and not constantly going out around the outside and then crossing it in, which is easy to defend against. If you play through quickly, him being so good at the first part of build-up means the other midfielders can stay central and they can stay in the pockets and he can play through to them and we'll build up a lot quicker. It won't be as slow and boring to watch, hopefully.
Hopefully. And for everything we've said here, it can't be one player. It's got to be Arteta. He's got to give that fluidity and freedom to certain players, and he's got to get the best out of what he's got, because there are players there that are technicians, and we need to let them thrive, like a Zubimendi, like a Partey, like an Odegaard, and many others. So yeah, I totally agree with you there. We'll round off there. Ben, thank you so much as always. Obviously your X account is in the description below. Everyone please go and follow, because the threads on players that we could be linked to and inevitably will be the minute Ben does a thread on them. It is class, and the breakdowns are brilliant. That was 30 minutes on Zubimendi, but we'll be back next week with maybe more of a general look at transfer rumours, but it kind of depends on how things are going. It might need a 30 minutes on Gyökeres the way things are going. But let's see, because it's hard to keep an eye on. But thanks, Ben. I really appreciate it as always, mate.
Cool. Yeah, no, thanks again. Yeah, good to talk about these players, especially the ones that people are just put back here that they're not bothered about.
People will be bothered, trust me. I'm going to throw out an early prediction.
Oh,
Zubimendi will be one of our players of the season. I want to throw that out there very early.
Yeah, I can see it.
I think it could be a huge impact, but let's see. Big thanks, Ben. And everyone, thank you for tuning in. Remember, you can catch this on Spotify, and when I get my act together, it should be on other platforms as well. I'm so sorry, but we'll be coming soon. But big thanks to Ben, and we'll catch you all soon.